Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode celebrating our 100 subscribers special, where I'll be reviewing each episode of Season 1. This will be very brief conclusions about the episodes and my overall thoughts, rather than a detailed look. And unfortunately, I was planning on doing a full season review of Season 1, but I just got demotivated in doing that project, and I want to do something else, because somebody else already uploaded it, the Unlucky Tug, reviewed of Season 1, and by then, I was so demotivated, so I've decided to do something else, but I got the ranking bit done, so I might as well just show that instead. Anyway, enjoy! First up, we have Thomas and Gordon. What else can I say, but it's a classic. It's what began the show. How could I not say it's an amazing episode? Also, I'd like you to check out the Thomas Cynic's review of the first episode of Season 1, because that took a really good analysis into why it was so great. But I'll just keep it simple and brief. This was an amazing setup. It added all the stuff we needed to know for the show to continue, how the show's tone would be throughout the entire season to come, and the characters that be involved, and how they interact with each other. It's a very simple plot, but it's done very, very well, and I'll give it a solid 9 out of 10. Next up is Edward's Day Out. This is a very good introduction episode to my favourite character, Edward. Yes, I did say that, sue me. And it sets up a rival between Gordon and Edward that would go on for another 2 seasons or so. It's a nice little quaint episode that combines 2 of the first Railway series stories, and yeah, I say it's a solid episode, a 7 out of 10. The Sad Story of Henry. Oh boy, everyone's favourite episode. The episode where that engine dies in a tunnel. Oh my god, how disturbing. It's not like they watched only this episode and never watched the other ones. This one is quite a good episode, and it shows that you can't always get away with things, because most children's shows were just like, oh yeah, as long as you apologise and stuff, everything will be rainbows. This is the harsh reality that sometimes you just need to be punished to get that mindset changed and honestly benefited more. However, this isn't complete without the other part, so it's going to be another 7 out of 10. I also forgot to mention that the Fat Controller's first introduced into this, and that's a positive thing. Edward, Gordon and Henry is a nice conclusion to the sad story of Henry, where Henry gets actually let out. See, if the companies had actually taken the time to watch the second part, they would understand that they didn't leave him there forever, and a show wouldn't be that dark. It would have just taken like 4-5 minutes or so. Like, I honestly don't see how they could have messed it up so badly. But anyway, this is a good episode. It's a solid conclusion, and also, try and write yourself out of this one, what about Audrey? It'll take you for a couple of books later. But anyway, this is a good episode. Not much to say about it, to be honest. A 6 out of 10. Also, this is not like a 6 out of 10 out of the entire series of Thomas. This is just for my own ranking in the season, because each season has a different level of quality, so therefore I rank it by 10, depending on the season. Thomas's Train is a nice continuation from Thomas and Gordon, where it continues Thomas to be working at Knapford Station and longing to pull a train. This is a very solid episode, and it gives some nice character development to Thomas to show that he's not all this and all that, but this will also have to happen in a couple more episodes before he finally learns that he's not what he makes it up to be. But this is a solid episode, even though I do have a complaint that how did Thomas not know that he was uncoupled from the train? Like, surely you must feel it if they are sentient after all. And definitely would notice a lack of pull, considering he has pulled coaches and trucks in before. But anyway, this is just a solid episode. A 6.5 out of 10. Thomas and the Trucks, an episode that I really am quite fond of. This episode focuses around Thomas taking Edward's train and thinking that trucks are easy to pull, because he's only pulled them in yards, but then he realises how much of a pain they are on the main line. This episode is a great use of showing the sights of Sodor across the main line, and also gives a nice arc for Thomas to learn more about Sodor and how he matures over the season, even though the maturity thing is more developed over other seasons where he becomes less silly. That is shown through the themes, but I'll get onto that in future seasons. Also, I forgot to comment on this in previous episodes, but the music is amazing. I love the Trucks theme and the Runaway theme for this certain episode. It's really unique and only appears in a couple of episodes this season, is never seen again. But I honestly think they should have used this more often, but hey ho, that's just my opinion.
Music make you lose control. Music make you lose control.
And also, the Runaway is quite good. And, yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Moving on to the next episode. Also, this is an 8 out of 10. Thomas saves the day. I have not much to say about this episode, other than it was the introduction to James. Which, actually, it wasn't an introduction to James, because he appeared in every single episode before that. So by saying he was a new engine, you're just straight up lying. Unless all the events that took place in the first couple of episodes took place in 1 or 2, 3 days, which is highly unlikely. But overall, I do think this is an okay, good episode. I have really not much to say about it. The crash is cool, but of course it's off screen because I don't know, I guess it just wasn't shown in the books, so I guess it wasn't shown live on the episode. I do think the Adventure Begins style is way better than this episode, but hey, it's just my opinion, you can argue with it. This is a 6.2 out of 10. James and the Coaches. A solid start to James's multi-episode arc, where James is all pompous, but I don't know how he was able to be pompous after what happened previously, but still, respect. But this episode really shows how James is still new and also is an idiot with controlling coaches, even though in past episodes he has been seen pulling coaches just fine. So what made it so different now? I don't know. Maybe he was trying to impress Edward. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, to be honest. But I do think this episode is quite good, and I like the bootlace joke. Speaking of which, I also like how James's pompousness catches up to him when he is forced to stop and makes the train late. Kinda shows how he deserves it. This is a nice 7 out of 10 episode. Troublesome Trucks. The part 2 of the James saga. This follows James trying to learn how to control trucks and treat them well. He does this unsuccessfully, but still proves himself to be really useful. Now this is a really nice episode for James because at the beginning of the episode he is at a low point, but then over the episode he overcomes obstacles and gains the Fat Controller's trust again. It's a really nice story, and I do think it's one of the stronger stories. And it finishes off James's character arc, even though we've got one more episode after this that finishes off the trilogy. But I do think this is a really good episode. I give this one an 8 out of 10. James and the Express. The final episode in the James arc, where James finally gets to show Gordon up to show that he's a worthy rival and competitor, rather than it just being Henry, because we need more conflict. And they form a kind of alliance at the end, which links on to further episodes, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, this is a good end to James's arc, but also begins a new arc, which is the Big Three. Oh god, I'm not looking forward to that. This episode is really good. It managed to show that Gordon isn't all that, and somebody else can do his job every once in a while. However, as a standalone episode, I don't think it's that great. I'd give this a 6 out of 10. Thomas and the Guard, a episode that is quite known for one joke and one joke only.
Rubbish, said Thomas. You're too fat, you need exercise.
However, I do think this episode is just quite small for an episode, and it's just stuff happening on Thomas's branch line, the episode, so there isn't really much to say about it. So I'll give this a 5.8 out of 10. Thomas Goes Fishing. A quite good episode. Again, it's just things happening on Thomas's branch line, the episode, but this one I find a lot more enjoyable due to its unique plot, and finding fish in Thomas's boiler is just such a funny idea, and the way that Ringo Starr says fish oddly fascinates me.
Can you see fish?
This may not be the most of interesting plots, but I do find it a very good episode. I would give this a solid 7.5 out of 10. Thomas, Terence and the Snow is a very good episode. It's personally my favourite out of the Thomas branch line quadrilogy, because it's the most unique. It takes place during autumn and winter, which is a great idea. And we also get to see snow on the island for the very first time. Also, we get introduced to one of the fan favourites, Terence the Tractor, and he's a great character and banters off Thomas really well, even though other characters will do it better in the future. Also, we get the first crash of the season, crash in quotation marks, but nevertheless, it's still a crash, where Thomas goes straight into the snow and embarrasses himself. Thomas can't get away with everything, so this is his comeuppance for treating Terence so badly, and Terence gets to show who's boss in certain conditions. But yeah, I do think this is a solid episode, a 8 out of 10. Thomas and Bertie. This episode is quite a classic in the fandom for one reason. It's the first ever race between Thomas and Bertie, and establishes their rival friendship against each other. And it's honestly a really good episode. I really enjoy all the use of sets. You really get a good look at Thomas's branch line and how it is. Overall, this is a solid 8.2 out of 10. Moving on. Tenders and Turntables, a part 1 of 2 with the tender engines having enough. This sets up the whole plot that they need a new tank engine, as Thomas has gone gallivanting off to his branch line, leaving the tender engines to shunt. And as we know, rich people hate doing work. Yeah, that didn't age well. But about the second part, this one's not much to talk about, other than the fact that James just goes full sicko mode. Overall, this episode is really not the same without its part 2, so I'll give this a 6.9 out of 10. Get it? Because it's the funny number. Trouble in the Shed, the sequel, which gives the tender engines what they want, a tank engine. But the Fat Controller, being the super Chad he is, doesn't let them out and lets all the tank engines and Edward do all the work for them and have some fun. Take that. You don't always get what you want. Life lessons, kids. Even though probably most of you already know that life lesson and are probably not kids. But this is a nice setup for Percy. Overall, not much to say about it. It's better than the first part because I like Karma. This is probably going to be a 7.3 out of 10. Percy Runs Away. A very, very good episode in my mind. Now that the tender engines are out and about, Percy now focuses on doing small tasks. But because he's new to the island and new to working, he doesn't know how to communicate with the signal man, leading to Gordon to come rushing in, barely stopping in front of him, and him running away. Cue the montage. The runaway theme is always welcome, with it being one of my favourite themes of all time. And also the chase is really, really good and shows us along the main line, quite quickly in fact. And even though it doesn't seem that very dramatic, it has that season 1 feel, where it feels dramatic, but on a lower budget, which it kind of gives like some nostalgia to the people who grew up with it and thinking it was more dramatic. Compared to other seasons, it's not as dramatic as you think. I give this one a 8.5 out of 10. Cole is a good episode. As it was in the Railway series, it's a nice way to contradict Henry's style for just being another Gordon. But in this, because Henry's still green, it doesn't make as much sense. But I do like this episode, and it gives more focus on Henry, which is one of the best characters in the classic series. No, I'm not counting the CGI series, why would I ever do that? But yeah, I do think this is a good episode, a solid 7 out of 10. The Flying Kipper, a fan favourite episode. I enjoy it, but not as much as people say it is. I used to enjoy it a lot more, but now I don't enjoy it as much because I've been aware of what was wrong with it. This episode follows Henry after getting this brand new coal that makes him feel better on the Flying Kipper trip. It has beautiful shots. I wish I had that much talent, but I don't, unfortunately. That's why I'm making a YouTube video. Make fun of me. But the thing is, it's just a train drive. It's just a train going across these beautiful landscapes and then crashing. There isn't much really to it, but I do think that the design of it is very, very good. And the crash, the first official crash, I'll say, is quite amazing as well. I give this one an 8.5 out of 10. Whistles and Sneezes. In the Railway series, it was 2 separate stories, but in this, they decided to combine them together, which was honestly the best option they could have went for, because it would have dragged out if they were 2 separate episodes. And also they'd have to get rid of another episode as well in order to make that fit. These episodes are great. Henry shows up to Gordon and some children by giving them lung disease. I can only say this many times, but this is a good episode and I do consider highly of it. And it was definitely better as a 2-parter, and I'd give it a 7.2 out of 10. Toby and the Stout Gentleman. Wow. One of the most favourite characters has been introduced. Toby is presented here as having a branch line on the island of Sodor, but still separate from the railway. And it's closing down, and the Fat Controller decides to visit, but that doesn't help save the railway, and it eventually closes down. This is a very sad story, but that's why it makes the second part so great, because it just leaves you on a happy note for a pretty depressing story, and it's a very good episode, and the overall tone of it is very good as well. Overall, I'll give this one an 8 out of 10. Thomas in Trouble, the second part to Toby's arc, where we follow Thomas getting in trouble with a policeman. Some of the comedy here is very good, and I like the banter of Thomas and the policeman.
Thomas, where's your cow catcher, he asked. But I don't catch cows, sir. Don't be funny, snapped the policeman.
It also gives a nice conclusive end to Toby's arc, with him finding a place on Sodor to work. If I had to give any complaints towards this episode, it'd be that too much time was focused on Thomas, and it was very last moment when Toby was introduced, which is my one and only complaint with this. But overall, I do think this is a well-adapted story, and I'll give this an 8.1 out of 10. Dirty Objects. This is one of my favourite episodes of the show, ever. I love this. This episode has a great character selection with Percy, Toby, and James. Toby and James' character dynamic is hilarious, with Toby just not giving anything, and then placing with James, the person who's always caring about how he looks, is such a great choice, and they banter super well. The crash is amazing, And the moral of the story being, don't treat people like idiots and you'll get your comeuppance if you do so, is a good thing to teach kids, and it's done very subtly, like most of the classic series does with its messages. This is a very high up there episode, and I will give this a 9.3 out of 10, the best episode so far. Off the rails! This is quite an interesting episode. It puts Gordon in his place, to be honest, and we get Gordon's crash? It's not really a crash, it's just more like a humiliation, which I really enjoy. Gordon finally getting his comeuppance for all the crappy stuff he's been doing throughout the entirety of season 1. And this is probably the best way to do it. This is self-inflicted by his own actions and no one else's, unlike some cases, which it just makes it more satisfying to see himself fail rather than others. And this is also another two-parter. Man, there was a lot of two-parters this season. I really can't say much negative about this, so I'm just going to give it a score. This is going to be an 8.5 out of 10. Down the Mine, the true finale to season 1. I don't count the Christmas episode because that was kind of put in there later on during Christmas, even though it was probably done at the exact same time. But this is an amazing episode. It finally finishes the season-long arc with Thomas and Gordon, where they finally put their differences behind them and become allies. This is due to Thomas making fun of Gordon, but then Thomas getting his comeuppance by falling down a mine, and then Gordon making fun of him for that. And this is a really nice episode. It's just a shame that the episode which was following that took place 3 seasons after. I mean, goals, people, goals. You don't put a story that's after the story takes place immediately 3 seasons later. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, as a standalone episode and a finale to the season, I'm going to give this one an 8.9. Thomas's Christmas Party, the Christmas episode. We only get those once every season. Well, Christmas focused. We still have a lot of winter episodes. But besides that, this is a good episode, not much to say about it, except it feels more like a part 2 to something that we didn't see before, when Miss Kindly's saving Thomas's life, I guess. It would just basically be Thomas getting stuck in the snow, but there, instead of snow, he gets a mouthful of dirt to his face. But to be honest, I'd rather not have dirt in my face. That's something odd I would say, but yeah, this episode is quite solid, even though I do think that Down the Mine would be a better finale to this, and I give this one a 7.5. Thank God we are done!